What up, Razzballers? Welcome back to another program of the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. We're getting through free agency. We're turning to the NFL draft, and it's a big day in baseball. Tune in right now to the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. What up, everybody? Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Sky Guasco, joined by the Tri-Fathers. I'll make it a quad father situation. We got Matty Styles, Derek Favret, our boy Jefferson coming through as well. The boss is out of town once again for the second week. So we got the kids running the classroom. Very excited for that. Make sure you find everything Razzball at Razzball NFL on the X machine. Of course, you can leave a rate and review on our podcast as well. The Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast, anywhere you listen to your audio. And then, of course, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below. Hit that bell on the YouTube page for those of you that haven't already. And for everybody coming over from X, we appreciate the support there, but we love it here on the YouTube channel because we have content for you every single day right here on the YouTube channel. And I want to make sure that you're catching all of our live videos that are repurposed in podcast form as well. And of course, you can catch all of our great writers, many writers on football.razzball.com live. Gentlemen, very excited for the quad box. Thank you all for joining us here. And, let's get the cat out of the bag. It is Fantasy Football Podcast night, and we're very excited about that. We're here for the people in fantasy football offseason. But let's not bury the lead any longer, folks. It is opening day baseball season.
Back.
Because Bob's not here, folks, we're going to take the next 2 or 3.5 hours to talk about late round second baseman, just in case you still have a draft coming up. I'm just kidding, Bob. But what we are going to do is just appreciate and acknowledge not only such a magical game in the game of baseball, but also the flagship of Razzball. So those of you that are joining us here for fantasy football purposes, we appreciate you. And we're here for you all year long in fantasy football. But, oh, by the way, Razzball Baseball is really what put Razzball on the map. So make sure you're checking all of that content out with our guys there as well on the other side for baseball. All right, gentlemen, happy opening day, everybody. We're very excited to have you in on a football night on baseball. So very excited. Styles, Derek, Jeff, happy to have you guys in. Let's kick it off here. As I mentioned up at the top here, we have kind of gotten through many weeks of the free agency, a very busy free agency period. Obviously, a ton of big names left camp. A lot of big ones landed elsewhere. We had a couple surprises. We had a couple releases that we didn't see coming. And, of course, we have the NFL draft coming up just right around the corner now. We're about a month out all of a sudden for the NFL draft. So what we decided to do tonight was kind of shift gears a little bit, get out of that free agency mindset and stay in the dynasty football mindset, but look toward the NFL draft of what might actually happen. Matt, I'm going to start with you here. The general consensus across the entire industry in NFL terms and fantasy football terms is we're going to have 3 quarterbacks minimum kick off the NFL draft. Some people have 4 quarterbacks. Some people have the Vikings swapping spots with the Chargers at number 5 for 5 consecutive quarterbacks. Is that actually going to happen? I'll kick it off with you this evening, Matt. Great to have you back as always, my man. What do you think's going on with the first couple of picks in the NFL draft?
Since Bob's not here.
Bob's not here, correct.
Yeah, I would like to welcome everybody to night 1 of the Mitch Haniger Comeback Player of the Year 2024 baseball season.
Wow.
Mark it down now. Mitchie 4 bags goes for 30 and 97.
Better season than Tyro Estrada. All right, I'll give it to you.
By the way, I roster both. You're welcome.
Nice.
And I will say this. I pray that there's a third bobblehead stadium giveaway in Seattle of Mike McCready playing the national anthem. He's done it twice, 11 and 13. Now I'm hoping that he does it one more time. So we shall see. I don't always get what I want, but they're not on tour. Maybe they're in town. They've dropped a new album. Well, the album hasn't quite dropped yet, but some of the songs have come out. So the boys at home, hopefully they get McCready in to play the national anthem, but we shall see. On to football. I've got my little notebook here, right? Everybody, the tried and trusty notebook. I think that this quarterback class is overrated. But that being said, I also think that there's going to be 3 in the top 3 picks, possibly a 4th in the top 4. And then I see somebody like the Raiders looking for a quarterback a little bit later. Now, Jeff may convince me that Minnesota sticks with their 2 first-round picks and hopes that a quarterback falls to them. But right now, I'm going to say this. Caleb Williams first to the Bears. He's got 2 established stud wide receivers. Washington gets Drake May out of North Carolina. I don't know. I've watched the guy play. He seems like a good kid, but I don't know. Is he Tim Couch? We shall see. He's got McLaurin and Dodson, right? 2 more good wide receivers. And kind of a running game with Austin Eckler. We'll let Derek talk about Austin Eckler and what he did in 23 again, if Sky can survive that. 3, I've got the Patriots taking the kid out of LSU and Daniels. It couldn't be a worse landing spot for a rookie quarterback that has legitimately a half a receiver, no tight ends, terrible running game. Now that Damian Harris is retired, now you've got Ramondre and only Ramondre. There is no James White coming out of the tunnel to catch all the checkdowns. Then I think I wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota trades up with Arizona and takes J.J. McCarthy at 4, which would be the best landing spot for him because he's got Justin Jefferson and he's got Jordan Addison and he's got T.J. Hawkinson once the tight end comes back. But if they don't, they may be able to wait based on teams that are drafting after them. They may be able to wait on J.J. McCarthy, who I'm not sure of either, right? So we won a big game, blah, blah, blah. I watched him. He didn't look great. He's just milquetoast to me. But maybe he's exactly what the NFL needs, right? Maybe he's got a little Brock Purdy in him, right? Boring, but gets the job done. Game manager, if you will, quote unquote, game manager. And if they stick, right, Minnesota can then bolster the defensive line with their second pick, maybe somebody like Byron Murphy out of University of Texas. I know Jefferson's a big Longhorns fan, so he'll probably talk all Longhorns stuff about later. And then I think the Raiders, they've got Gardner Minshew. What they signed him 15, 2 years? What's the contract there?
Yep. 2-15.
Yeah. Maybe they bridge their starting quarterback with Minshew, and they go and they draft a guy like Bo Nix and then partner him up with Troy Franklin later, or they look at a guy like Penix and see what they can land further down in the draft. So with all of that said, I will pass it either back to you, Sky, or to whoever you want to shoot holes in those 5 to 6 quarterback names.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I'll turn it down here to Jefferson, actually, here. Secondly, you just dropped your article, of course. All 3 of you guys just had articles dropped this week. Recently, of course, all those articles for free on football.razzball.com. Everybody can go check those out and peruse. Make sure you leave comments at the bottom of our articles, right? We love to get your feedback, like where we're going crazy, where you agree with us. We get back to every single comment. If you remember correctly, one of us on this panel here was batting 1,000 last year in hundreds of comments on his waiver wire articles throughout the season. I forget who that was, but it was definitely one of us. So make sure you leave a comment on the bottom. We'll get back to you in a timely manner and have those discussions. Matt, before I go to Jeff here, you brought up something that's interesting, right? Like we have the draft order of the NFL teams, which is fixed until we make trades. Then you see a lot of mock drafts, but the mock drafts are based on the team and then the need for the team. It isn't necessarily the best player available, right? So like some people might think, some people are, and I think they're correct, Marvin Harrison may just be the best player, period, in the entire draft. But if the first 3, 4, 5 players would rather have a quarterback for whatever reason, Marvin Harrison's all of a sudden the 6th pick or something like that, right? Offensive tackles go off the board sometimes first, or they go off the board, 10th or 11th, but they're obviously a key position as well. So depending on how you look at these prospects and the teams, it's actually very interesting to look at the listings. Like Pro Football Focus, for example, just list the players in the best player, not the fit for teams, but the best player. But then you look at the actual mock draft. For example, I'll pick out a name we were talking about pre-show, my boy Bo Nix out of Oregon, number 33 overall for Pro Football Focus, but he is climbing up boards a little bit. He might be the 6th, 7th quarterback, but does that mean he's actually going to go in the back of the first round, or would he be a day 2 pick? So that'll be interesting. Jeff, you brought up some of these things in your article over the week, and I'm curious, I know you're a Bo Nix guy, but in general, relating to what Matt had said at the top of the show here, do you think that his orders, in a good move there? Do you think we are going to see a flood of quarterbacks again, which we saw in 2020, right? With Lawrence and Trey Lance and Sam Darnold and all these guys? Or is there going to be a little bit of space there with Brock Bowers, Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Odunze, maybe some of these other alternative options?
Yeah, I think that draft, it wasn't the best draft in 2020, listing out some of those names. So I think some GMs might be hesitant to take all these quarterbacks. I mean, I think too, it's a team need. And then kind of like when you do like a real life fantasy draft, you look at people who draft in front of you and behind you, and they kind of see what teams they have, what players they have, who could potentially fall. And I don't see it being any different in real life even. So with Minnesota, they're in a really interesting spot. They do have 2 first-round picks. They can, bundle those together, so to speak, and move up. But I think some of these quarterbacks after the top 3 are kind of all in the same. I think so. If you're Minnesota, do you think one of these 3 guys can fill in? I don't know. But I think Bo Nix has a good chance at doing that for them. They could potentially get him maybe at 20. I think they draft again. Sorry. They are drafting
23.
23. That's what I thought. So he could fall there and you still get a top end quarterback, depending how they rate him too. And how they rate these guys is so interesting. They have different kind of numbers and statistics analysis that they do. So, all this hype with JJ McCarthy trying to move up, was that because of his former head coach at Michigan talking him up, saying he's the best quarterback? So there's a recency bias. So people think now they may trade up. I don't know. But if you have 2 first-round picks, that's valuable unless you really value that guy that high. So in terms of fantasy for us, though, in a dynasty format, there's one team that I really like. They're not in the top 5, but going back to quarterbacks, I think it's the LA Rams. I think they may be able to find a guy who falls and can learn from a year or 2 behind Stafford. And then when he gets ready, he'll have a prime Puka and Kyron Williams, or he could play even next year, even depending on injury with Matt Stafford. And that could be a guy in a dynasty format that I definitely would be targeting.
That's a great call. I like that you brought up the Rams. There's some other teams too. And Derek, I'll have you jump in a second, but I love the Seattle Seahawks without Geno Smith. I don't know that they're looking for a quarterback this year, but those weapons with a different quarterback, Sam Howell's not it either probably, but if they get another fresh blood with those 3 receivers in that run game, I think they could be dangerous as well. We'll see what happens. Derek, come on in here, man. How do you feel about where Styles is at? We just talked about JJ McCarthy, 28th per Pro Football Focus. And I was just doing some quick looking here. Caleb Williams, consensus number 1. We've given our thoughts on that, whatever. Marvin Harrison, number 2. Drake May, number 3. Malik Neighbors, number 4. Rome Odunze, number 6. Brock Bowers, number 7, as far as like positional players in fantasy football per Pro Football Focus. But after that, you go all the way down to number 22 until you get Jaden Daniels. So a ton of defensive backs, some offensive line, a couple DNs in just the talent. So are these NFL teams going to pass on those type of players just to fill a need at a quarterback or a wide receiver position?
Yeah, I think that first round is going to be wheeling dealing after the Bears. Although I could still make an argument that the Bears should trade that first pick and to either Washington or New England and get a haul back and still get a franchise quarterback. But they're not going to do that. They've already invested in Williams, so that ship has sailed. Actually, I like Matt's first 3. Because I'm on the same 3 names there, the first 3. I think both Washington and New England will be listening. They'll be answering their phone, but in the end, they're just going to make the best pick for them, which is going to be a quarterback. But what's really interesting to me, though, is 11, 12, 13, Vikings, Broncos, Raiders. And you both have mentioned the Vikings and the Raiders already having an interest, but Denver does as well. I mean, they need a quarterback in the worst way, and we won't get into Russell Wilson's departure there and all the money that they're paying him, but they need a quarterback as well. And I could see them making a call either to Arizona or the Chargers. Of course, neither one of them need a quarterback, so they're going to be primed to move down. I've heard a lot. I don't know if you guys have as well, that the Giants are interested in maybe JJ McCarthy. I think that's all noise. I don't think there's any value to that. And in fact, I think that it's probably strategic in a way to get maybe some folks to trade up to the 6th spot and let the Giants trade down, because the Cardinals and the Chargers, they have other needs. Specifically, wide receivers fit really well there. Marvin Harrison, like you said, in Malik Neighbors, or even the wide receiver out of Washington, Odunze. So I could actually see I could see a scenario where the first traded pick is number 6, and it's the Giants, and it'll be either the Vikings or the Broncos trading up to take a quarterback. So I don't think there'll be top five quarterbacks. I think the 3 for sure, and then I think we'll see a pair of wide receivers, and then that's when the fun starts with the Giants and even maybe the Titans and the Falcons right after that, looking to trade down. So that's my thought.
The biggest part of this too is, like, in fantasy, all we care about really are the skill position players, right? Super flex, you get rookie quarterbacks, but not often do rookie quarterbacks come out of the chute and are prevalent in single quarterback leagues, at least right off the bat. But rookie wide receivers, especially these days, the last 3 to 5 years, rookie wide receivers jump on the scene. And it might take them a week or two, but Justin Jefferson, I know, is in a league of his own, but guys like that have popped off the page immediately. Some running backs do too, but this running back class just isn't, there's no Bijan, there's no, types of guys that we had put in a different class the last couple of years. Saquon Barkley, of course, going very early the last couple of years. So that'll be interesting there too. There's also a lot of deeper names as well, where again, you look at like the actual NFL significance of these players, a great, edge rusher, a great offensive tackle, a defensive back, like a Patrick Surtain that came in and just fixed things in Denver. Like, you really need to have those fills. Whereas if you're just getting like another backup quarterback that might be your future, that's cool. But unfortunately, we've seen the last couple of years, when that goes sideways, you're hurting. I mean, Josh Rosen, right, is one. Like, you could talk about Sam Darnold and even back to Marcus Mariota and some of these other guys, Trey Lance, who haven't paid out, but they at least played like a little bit. They had some injury. They didn't work out. That happens. Josh Rosen didn't do anything, and he was a top 10 pick, and it set the Cardinals back a second time trying to find that extra piece behind Kyler Murray. So, like, are they willing to do it again or go all in on him, who's had injury concerns? Like, what are they actually going to do there? And will they invest everything in Marvin Harrison? And actually, Derek, I'll counter a little bit. I could see even as early as the Cardinals moving out, where I know that Harrison's kind of that gold nugget, but if you can get a consolation prize of a Doomsday or, Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas or even my boy Troy Franklin or something, then maybe they bounce back and get some more collateral. But maybe the Cardinals could move, the Chargers could move out, the Giants could make a move, Titans, Falcons, Bears again makes sense, the Jets, but the Vikings could move up, right? We could see, I don't know, maybe the Jags trying to get more weapons, those Rams trying to get some insurance as well, because they're really close to kind of like that win now mode in a tough division. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. Matt, I'm going to go back to you here. What would be maybe like a surprise player or pick? And you could be totally selfish right now. What is something you want to see happen, no matter how ridiculous it might seem? Because one thing we know about the NFL draft, all of us pros do all, sit down with our spreadsheets and do all the numbers and make our lists, and we feel great about it. And then one team trades out of a position and it throws the whole draft to shit. So what is one, just selfish for fantasy football, what's one player you'd love to see land in a particular scenario? Then I'll go to Jeff and Derek with the same question.
What's the Bears? Remind me, their second pick.
It's 9. 9.
So I would like to see the Bears go Caleb. Well, I don't love Caleb Williams. They're going to take him. So I will say that I think that's going to happen, whether I approve it or not. And then you've got Keenan Allen, you've got DJ Moore, you've got Cole Kmet, you've got DeAndre Swift. I think you throw Malik Neighbors into that and tell him go score 42 a week. We'll figure the defense out.
We'll give up 35, just score 42.
Yep. Or they realize that they've got 2 good receivers, a decent tight end, a running back that can catch the ball as well, and they trade down out of that number 9 spot because it probably carries value.
It's a top 10 pick.
Top 10 pick. You trade down a little bit and maybe get the offensive lineman or the safety or cornerback that you need because the Bears have not been playing great defense lately either. I mean, they've been pretty bad all around, and I love it. I'm here for it. I root for the Bears to be bad. But I think I could see them either taking neighbors and saying, we're going to go all in and try to score on every single drive, or trading down. Either way, what I want to see is the Bears trying to make a splash and fail again. That's what I want to see.
Fair enough. Jeff, same question. Before you get into it, I want to welcome everybody joining us on opening night of baseball. You're hanging out watching a fantasy football show. So we appreciate you. Maybe you got a double screen. That's what I would do if I were you. I'd be baseball over here and us on fantasy football over here. So I want to welcome everybody in from X or anybody that's hanging out with us on YouTube. Again, you can follow us on each channel, and you can also follow us along on the podcast side after the fact. So we really appreciate the support, and happy opening day, everybody hanging out with us, talking a little Dynasty Round 1 NFL Draft on a fantasy football night late March. Jeff, let's kick it down to you, bud. Same question. Totally selfish fantasy football. Pick a team, pick a player. What do you want to see happen?
Yeah, so this is in the top 5. It's the Chargers. I mean, they got rid of all their receivers. They still have Justin Herbert. A lot of people have invested in Justin Herbert, myself included. So what if one of those top wide receivers are there? Why not take them? Pair them with Justin Herbert, at least give them a fighting chance to keep the offense moving. I don't know what that offense is going to look like, but I mean, they've got nobody there. Someone's got to catch passes from Herbert. So, that Malik Neighbors, I think he'd be a good fit there. Another interesting thing I was just thinking about when Derek brought up the Broncos, what if they really moved up out of nowhere? Sean Payton's got to have a quarterback, or he's going to be out in Denver. So maybe he likes somebody. Maybe it's Jaden Daniels. What if he tried to trade up in the top 3? Just really spice it up. That'll happen, but that would be a fun story to see one of these top quarterbacks go to a team who's not even being discussed as a top 3 pick.
And I like the talk about the Chargers that everybody seemed to be sleeping on and forgetting. But they cleaned house. The latest rumor I've got after Gus Edwards has gone and Jim Harbaugh said, I'm going to run football is J.K. Dobbins.
That's my boy.
Is making a visit, maybe as an RB2. And then I heard on the defensive end there, the Chargers' plan with the new defensive coordinator is to get coked up pterodactyls, is what they said. Guys that just go nuts on defense. And I had to rewind it and listen to that 3 times. Coked up pterodactyls. Just really fast, hair on fire dudes coming at you from every position. And I thought that was, once you can stop and think about what that means and envision it, right? They're going to try to win 9-6. They're going to win 17-13, or they're going to try. So I think maybe if we can get the Dobbins and Gus Bus tandem, maybe draft some offensive line help. But you're right, Jeff. They have to get a receiver for Justin Herbert. The free agents are pretty much gone. There's nobody that I really want to talk to. They could even trade, or they could trade back up into the top of the second or bottom of the first and get the Worthy speed demon from University of Texas. I know, again, Jeff, you do love the University of Texas players, so I'll just keep throwing them at you until you stop me.
One other guy I want to add in here that we haven't talked about. He's considered top 5, top 6 receiver, and Brian Thomas out of LSU. Mm-hmm. He was WR2 in that offense, so to speak. I think he could be falling down board just because the receivers are there's just a lot of them after the top few, as we talked about already. I think he'd be a great fit in Buffalo to play alongside with Josh Allen, help out Diggs, because they lost Gabe Davis and my Jags. So they're needing of some offensive help on the outside. And a rookie going to Josh Allen, I know we used to always love rookie receivers going to Pat Mahomes. Why not Josh Allen?
Nice. I like that. Couple retorts here, and then Derek, I'm going to turn to you with the same question. So focusing on the Chargers here, they do have the 5th pick of the 2nd round as well. So Matt, to your point, they could potentially utilize that trade down out of the 5th pick of the first round, which has a ton of collateral, as we know, go back down, get like the 3rd or 4th wide receiver, if it even falls at, maybe it's still Brock Bowers, who knows? And then they can go up and move into the back half of the second or the first round with that 2nd round pick, do that again. And then, you know, maybe Troy Franklin, just because of the duck connection with Herbert and Franklin, makes sense. And he's a consolation prize, but he's got great hands, great wheels. That's all they need there with another good option. But again, Brock Bowers in that offense would be great, because they also got rid of Gerald Everett, who nobody's talking about, but they got rid of him too. So a lot of emptiness there. And there's another team here, Derek. I'll see if you mention him, but if not, I'll bring him up here in the back of the first round. But a lot of movement. We'll see what happens. Derek, same question to you. Be totally selfish, fantasy football, dynasty, redraft. Who's one player you want to land in a particular situation?
Yeah. So you just mentioned Brock Bowers. Yeah, and there's a team out there in the middle of the first round that really needs a tight end, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. Their big splash this year was re-signing Pittman. They've got Anthony Richardson coming back. Why not pair that young quarterback with this tight end of the future and trade up above, probably above the Jets? So we're talking about either 8 with the Falcons or 9 with the Bears. Trade up and take Brock Bowers. That's what I would like to see that.
I like that a lot. Maybe give us a Dallas Clark from yesteryear. I would love to see that.
That reminds me
that.
of Dallas Goedert. He got selected before the Cowboys. I think we're going to pick him. The Eagles traded up out of nowhere.
They stole him the pick right before, and that was to replace Jason Witten. Like, that was a gangster move, honestly. That was pretty well done. One team, first of all, we as a collective industry have not heard a single peep from, which makes me absolutely thrilled. The Dallas Cowboys, believe it or not, folks, are still in the NFL. Unfortunately, they didn't participate in free agency this year. But while they're probably going to make the playoffs and probably lose to the Packers, which is fine, they still have, like, they could use some help at wide receiver. They could, get some more help at tight end, right? I mean, they have some defenses, right? I mean, unfortunately, Leighton Vander Esch, was forced to retire with his injuries, which is just a bummer, kind of a Luke Kuechly situation that sucks. So they have a hole there. But Dallas Cowboys haven't made a single move. Maybe they make a couple splashes in the NFL draft, but they haven't done anything. They re-signed their long snapper, basically, which, respects to my long snappers, get in the bag, but kind of silly that Jerry, who is not shy for spending money and making splashes, didn't do a single thing in free agency. So really interesting to see what they do at number 24. Maybe they move up and see what happens there. One other thought, I had a comment earlier and I forgot to mention, Matt, I think you brought it up, and Jeff, you as well. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards both now with the Chargers. So again, I'm going to throw a bone to Bob here, because he would bring this up if he was on. We talk about continuity all the time. Relationships in the NFL mean so much. Greg Roman, a few years ago, was the coach for both of those guys in Baltimore. He brings both of them over now to the Chargers. So both of those guys are very effective, and a 2, 3, 4-headed monster for the Ravens for many years was very effective. And, those guys are maybe a limited upside. They're RB2s with RB1 upside, but they're all draftable and they're all usable. And if one guy goes down, the next guy gets an extra bump. So don't forget about J.K. Dobbins, and who looks healthy, by the way, and he was cleared for football activities, but a couple of videos have come out recently of him, more straight line running. We want to see the lateral stuff with his leg, but he looks great and such a dynamic runner. So if they bring that type of Baltimore ball to LA with Herbert, there could be some explosion there, but I just don't see the downfield aerial attack. Derek, did you have a comment on that?
Well, I'm just going to say, are we going to break the news in this show that the Ravens and the Chargers are colluding, between brothers to send, the running backs to the West Coast?
Breaking news right now. Absolutely.
You think they plan that over, Christmas dinner?
Yeah. Give me 1 second here. Derek, go ahead.
Yeah. Breaking news. NFL investigates the Baltimore Ravens and the LA Chargers for colluding.
Classic.
Running backs.
Harbaugh shenanigans.
Yeah, there we go.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you. And again,
Bob,
I mean, a lot of that
never played music like that. Bob's never played music like that.
Well, Matt, I'm here to have fun. That's what I'm here
You're
to
built
do.
different.
I'm here to bring a good atmosphere and an opportunity for you. You know what I mean? I've watched
That music.
before we popped
should
on today,
feel
I watched
different.
about 96 innings of baseball for the first time in like 7 months, man. I'm in a good vibe right now. I mean, what do you want to do? We can do this all day long. You know what I mean? We can get the old throwback song. I can do whatever. This one's for Jeff. Get a little pop. I'm not going to feed the ducks. I think we're beyond that on this show, but we're having a good time, and I'm appreciative of it. All right, gentlemen, let's go around with the kind of the final thoughts here on first round NFL draft. Again, we're kind of just freshly getting out of free agency. Everybody's landed for the most part. We had a couple names that have landed in the last couple days that we haven't talked about yet on the show, but unless there's anybody free agency that landed that you guys want to bring up, just kind of quick thoughts. Again, somebody maybe that would be surprising, maybe a player like you're not super thrilled on that everybody loves. Matt and I have talked extensively about the fact that we're not crazy about Caleb Williams. So let's take him off the table so we're not overly redundant on that. But if there's anybody else maybe that just the industry is pumping, you're like, I just don't see it. Or maybe there's just one player where you're like, look, man, nobody's talking about this kid. My guy's Troy Franklin, right? Like, I mean, people talk about him, but he's on that lower rung of wide receivers. I think he could really be special in the right opportunity. Let's go around the horn one more time before we get out of here. And I got a final question after that before we get going. But Styles, I'll kick it off with you. Is there a player that you're not super hot about that isn't named Caleb Williams? Or maybe a player that's kind of like off the radar, just maybe a day 2-3 pick, but you think really has a great opportunity if he lands in the right spot?
I want to see after they're in the league for 3 years if Neighbors and Thomas are better than Chase and Jefferson.
There you go. Wow. So, okay. And pause really quick. I was going to make this note earlier. 2014, Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry came out together, right? So you have that opportunity. And the LSU Tigers have done it a couple of times, right? Jamar Chase as well. So, and Jefferson, obviously. So you really have the opportunity of two guys from the same school. Alabama had done it a couple of times with a number of wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy and Devonta Smith most recently, Julio Jones and Amari Cooper and things. So that would be very interesting. We'll see that. Maybe a hot take to table in Dynasty, Matt. I like that a lot. But as we know, it's so important about where they land. I'm not sure I want one of those guys landing in Carolina right now, but we'll see what happens. Derek, I'm going to go with you next. Is there somebody maybe you're not crazy about that the industry is, or is there maybe a deep sleeper in this draft class that you'd like to see in the first, say, 40 picks?
Yeah, and actually, I'm just going to divert a little bit even further than that and look at the running backs. We didn't talk about the running backs much, but projected, there's not a running back being selected until the third round, and that's Trey Benson out of Florida State. And have we ever seen a draft where we haven't had a running back go in the first 2 rounds ever?
I can't
That's
remember.
Crazy to me. I can't think that he slides down that far. I mean, we talked about, or you talked about Dallas, making a splash. I think that's a name that I'm going to keep an eye on and see if that's a pairing that actually I'm going to keep an eye on. Like you said, see if Dallas makes a move, either makes a move or uses one, their early pick to take a running back a lot earlier than what the experts are suggesting, with him being a 3rd round pick. It blows my mind that we're not talking running backs in either of the first 2 rounds, let alone, early 3rd.
Per Pro Football Focus, based on just players and ability, not team matchup, the first running back comes up at number 56 from the Hook'em Horns. Of course, Jonathan Brooks at number 56. After that, we go down and we find, where is he? Way down here. Geez. Jalen Wright, who I like a lot, out of Tennessee. Then we get Blake Corum out of Michigan, which a lot of people think might just land with the Chargers with Harbaugh again. And then Bucky Irving, my boy from Oregon. Trey Benson, Florida State. So you get a lot of those guys. But again, Derek, we're talking, back into the second, maybe probably 3rd, 4th round. And look, for us, all of us, right? We grew up in the days where you had 6 running backs in the first round every year. The first 5 picks used to be running backs not too long ago, right? Adrian Peterson, LaDainian Thomas, and Sean Alexander days. Obviously, that has changed with the style of football. Saquon Barkley being the number 2 pick is kind of that, last note we've seen of that. Najee Harris surprised everybody. And let's not forget, you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire get picked ahead of Jonathan Taylor by the Chiefs in the last pick of the first round a couple years ago. Andy Reid won a couple of ships since then, so he probably doesn't hate the move per se, but it was definitely a head scratcher at the time because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not Brian Westbrook like everybody thought he was going to be. Jeff, I'll end it with you, and then boys, I got a final question for you to end off the show. Jeff, same question. Somebody that's maybe off the radar, a deeper sleeper that you really like in this draft class. I like that Derek kind of pivoted to the running back position. We did not talk about them quite a bit because they are off the radar. Or is there somebody up in the top, maybe 10, 15 picks that you're just not crazy about?
Well, for like a sleeper, I think he's like a day 2, the wide receiver out of UCF, Javon Baker. I don't know if y'all watched any Big 12 football or whatnot, though, but I've watched a lot of like draft stuff. And one video really caught my eyes with Steve Smith, former Panthers great. I watched a lot of videos, and he makes hard catches look really easy. And he's just a guy, I think, that if he gets in the right situation, he's the guy people are going to be talking about as a waiver wire ad come week 2 or 3, depending where he's at. Just a guy that he was a former Alabama player as well, so he has the pedigree and the talent, and transferred out due to the NIL, which everybody's doing now. So the talent's there, the pedigree is there. It's just the right situation, and sometimes it's okay to be a second-round pick in the NFL, and you can still have a very fine NFL career and great for fantasy too. So that's just a name that I'd be looking out for.
Some kid last year named Puka Nacua was drafted a little bit later in NFL drafts, and that seemed to have worked out. Puka Nacua seemed to do pretty well. Javon Baker, number 76 per Pro Football Focus, behind Devontae Walker out of Carolina, Xavier Worthy, who we talked about earlier. A lot of horns today. Shouts out to Texas. And then Jalen McMillan as well from the Huskies. So really buried. Again, we're talking like 10, 15 wide receivers deep, but maybe a gold nugget there, which would be interesting right ahead of Johnny Wilson out of Florida State. So nice deeper dive there. Jamie, what up, my man? Great to have you in. And again, I want to welcome everybody in for tuning in with us on opening night of baseball. Y'all are hanging out with us on Fantasy Football Show. This is the Razzball Fantasy Football Show with the Quad Fathers. The boss is out of the office once again this week, so we're having some fun. And to end the show, guys, out of respect for baseball, which the four of us absolutely love, we also play fantasy baseball. But don't tell Bob that. We have a great time. We all grew up going to the ballpark, sniffing the grass, eating a little peanuts and Cracker Jacks. We got to end the show, guys. And Jamie and everybody else, feel free to jump in the comments if you'd like to as well. We're going to go around the horn. Maddie, I'm going to start with you. We'll go to Derek and Jeff. We look early. Okay, we're looking at opening day predictions for the World Series. I need 2 teams, 1 American League, 1 National League for those of you new to the program, and then go ahead and give me the winner. If you want to, give me a heart pick like your team, and then give me a brain pick. That's totally fine too if you want 2 different matches. Maddie Styles, I'm going to kick it off with you first. Then Derek will go to you, and Jeff will follow up with you before I give you mine.
Caveat, can't be a repeat, so I'm going to remove the Rangers. I think it's too easy to say Houston and the Dodgers because the cliche is I don't see any outs on those lineups. Okay, so those 3 are out for me. I'm going to go I just lost it. Hold on. Philadelphia Phillies, due to the rotation, they're going to beat the Diamondbacks to go to the World Series. Woo. And the American League team that's going to go wire to wire is the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah.
Love that. All right, Derek?
Yeah, everyone's, going to be on the Dodgers, or, the Dodgers got all the pressure on them, but I don't think they're going to make it out of the NL as well. I actually like the Braves to make it to the World Series, but they're going to lose to the AL champ, Baltimore Orioles.
Okay, that's 2. I like it. And Maddie, sorry, you had the Orioles beating the Phillies, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go Orioles beating the Phillies. Derek is probably right. Atlanta is absolutely stacked. I absolutely forgot about them, but I knew that the baseball guy below me is what I said. Below. So
that's right.
I don't think that I said something
else.
I
might be below you in the box, but I'm not going to be below you in the standings.
Never. Yeah, Atlanta's probably the better pick, but I will go with Philly. I like the rotation. I think the offense is better than people are giving them credit. So I like them going forward. I think Milwaukee is sneaky too. But yeah, give me the Orioles to beat the Phillies.
Nice. Jeff.
Yeah, I was right there with Derek. I got the Braves and the Orioles. That's after what Corbin Burns did today, and then once they eventually call up Jackson, it's going to be a great young team. I do think the Braves do win over the O's, but I could see the O's doing it back-to-back seasons, kind of like what the Royals did a few years ago.
Man, this is I'll put out a fun one just to mix it up a little bit, but I think all of our heads are in the right spot. I do think the Braves get by the Dodgers, which they tend to do each year. But the Braves are also due. They haven't been able to get it done. And I just think that they're going to be too much overall. So I'll take the Braves to win. And I do think they beat the Orioles, who I think are just the power of the American League, but I think they're just 1 year, like too young. You know what I mean? The Braves have been their season, and the postseason matters, right? So I really do think that that'll happen. So I'm going to go the Braves over the Orioles. But to have a little fun, I do think teams like, the Reds could make a splash if they could stay healthy. I think that'd be a lot of fun. The Brewers, I think it could have a lot of fun as well. Jamie, shouts out to the Guardians, as we say on the program here. But there's a lot of other teams that I think could make a splash. And look, nobody saw the Diamondbacks coming out of anywhere last year. And frankly, the 3 times the Giants won the title in the early 2000s, 2010s, we were not the cream of the crop for those 3 years, but we made a run down the stretch there. So I think that'll be really interesting. Let's all root for the A's because they don't have any fans. So I would love to see them do well in a nice sayonara. I'll be out there for the Bay Bridge series in August. So we'll be tipping the cap to the old Oakland Coliseum. So I'll pour one out for the boys. And just for Bob, who's a closet baseball hater, we're going to give him an Orioles lineup as well, because when he was a young lad and still liked baseball, he was a big Orioles fan. So we're going to give another couple for the Orioles. Folks, absolute pleasure doing another quad box today with the boys. You can, of course, find everything at Razzball, at Razzball NFL for all the football content, and at Razzball for everything else, baseball content and more on Twitter. The X Machine, you can find us on the podcast, the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast, anywhere you listen to your audio. Make sure to hit the subscribe and hit that bell below as well to find us right here on the YouTube channel. And of course, going around the horn here, you can at Styles08, at Derek_Favret, and at Jefferson __. That's a dub underscore for you newbies out there. 21, and you can find me at Sky Guasco as well. Of course, find the boss as well. That's at Bobby Lamarco. We're having such a pleasure with you guys on a baseball opening night, folks. A lot of fun here, but we are football all year round on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. But of course, find all of our articles for free on football.razzball.com and all the baseball content on the other side as well. Until next time, everybody, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we will catch you next time on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show.